Hey, what's up folks? How's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well. And for the past couple of days, I've been playing around with the new Nexus 5X. This is the brand new Nexus device from Google. It's a pretty competitive smartphone in terms of pricing, but it still offers all the premium capabilities that you find from most other devices in its category. But in this video, we're going to be doing a three-way comparison between the new Nexus 5X versus the two most popular smartphones out there. I'm talking about the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge versus the iPhone 6S. So basically, if you guys are interested in seeing how the new Nexus device compares against the two most popular flagship devices out there, let's get right into it and find out how it stacks up. As you can see side by side, the new Nexus 5X is actually slightly larger in terms of width and height than the other two phones. And if we take a look at the actual thickness, it's a little bit thicker, measuring about 7.9 millimeters versus the other two smartphones are around 7 millimeters. The iPhone is the heaviest though, measuring about 143 grams. The S6 Edge is the lightest at 132 grams, and the Nexus is right in the middle at 136 grams. Now, in the hand, all three of these smartphones are very comfortable to use. They actually have a good balance of screen size versus the actual physical footprint, so they'll fit in most people's pockets with no problem. They'll be easy to use with one hand, no matter what size of hand you have, so they definitely balance those dimensional aspects very well. In terms of the build quality, obviously the iPhone and the Samsung are a cut above the Nexus. The Nexus, although not made out of bad materials, mostly polycarbonate plastics, is certainly not at that premium level as those other two smartphones, which completely makes sense because it comes at a completely different price tag. Furthermore, even though the build quality may not be up to par compared to the other smartphones, we still have a lot of excellent features. It actually has a fingerprint scanner located at the back of the device, which is very handy and convenient to operate with one hand, so you can unlock the device or use it as a password replacement. The other two smartphones have the fingerprint sensor embedded in their home buttons, which is also relatively easy to use, but sometimes it is a little bit cumbersome to use the fingerprint scanner, especially with one hand compared to the Nexus 5X. Moreover, another option on the Nexus 5X, which is quite unique and new to smartphones, is the USB Type-C connectivity. This is finally a new standard we're going to see in a lot of future smartphones, and that's basically the option to have full USB 3.0 data transferring speeds, as well as the fact that it's a reversible cable, just like the Lightning connection we have on the iPhone, which is certainly a lot easier interface to use compared to micro USB found on most smartphones, including the Samsung Galaxy S6. Now moving on, and let's talk about the displays on all three of these smartphones. In terms of the actual size, both the Nexus and the Samsung are very similar. You're looking at about 5.2 inches on the Nexus 5X versus 5.1 inches on the GS6 Edge, and the iPhone 6S has the smallest display, measuring about 4.7 inches. Now in terms of the actual resolution, the Samsung is the clear winner. It has a Quad HD display, giving it a PPI count of about 577. We have a full HD display on the 5X, and it has a PPI count about 424. And if we take a look at the iPhone, it's still using last year's kind of display panel, which is, it'll give you 1334 by 750, and that has a PPI count about 326. Now, having more pixels doesn't always translate into better actual image quality when you're looking at these three phones side by side in real life. In actual fact, I really can't tell the difference between what they did with the 5X next to the Nexus 5, which I owned for many years. LG pretty much made very minimal improvements to the actual display, and as you can see side by side compared to the other smartphones, it's definitely not as contrasty. The colors are not that saturated, and in terms of color rendition and accuracy, it's kind of off as well. The viewing angles are not too bad. It's not as good as what we find on the super organic LED display on the Samsung, and even not as good as the IPS LED backlit display we have on the iPhone. So in most cases, I kind of prefer the displays on the other two smartphones compared to what the Nexus 5X has to offer, mostly because the color rendition isn't that good and the black levels are pretty subpar as well. Now internally, you can see the specifications laid out in front of you of all three of these smartphones. We're basically using the Snapdragon 808 chip on the Nexus 5X, which is an octa-core chip comprised of two quad cores. We have a similar configuration on the Samsung S6, but it's using the Exynos 7420 architecture, processor, and obviously the iPhone 6s is using the brand new Apple A9 dual-core chip clocked around 1.8 gigahertz. Now, if we take a look at the benchmark results that I did on all three of these smartphones, you can see in terms of the Geekbench results, basically the iPhone comes out on top in terms of its single-core processing, but in terms of the multi-core performance, the GS6 comes out on top with its Exynos processor delivering the faster speeds in that department. And if you take a look at the results on the Nexus 5X, it's certainly not bad at around 1200 on the single-core and about 3500 on the multi-core, but it's just not up to what the other two smartphones can do. In reality, the performance is going to be adequate for most people, but let's actually go further and check out the Antutu results over here. And here we see a little bit more of a representative score, where again the GS6 comes out on top at getting over 65,000 points, 58,000 points on the iPhone, and about 50,000 points for the Nexus 5X. Continuing forward and looking at the graphical capabilities, basically we see the results where it favors the iPhone. The PowerVR chip is a 6-core GPU, so it does an excellent job in terms of really high performance graphical processing, where it's kind of beating the other two smartphones by a pretty decent margin. Even in the physics results, the iPhone still comes out on top. And in terms of the gaming performance, the Nexus 5X, generally speaking, will play most of your Android games without any hiccups, without any major lags or frame drops, which is nice to see, but it's just not up to the capabilities of, again, what the other two are capable of. Now, next we're going to examine the camera performance of all three of these smartphones, and taking a look at the specifications over here, we can see that all are pretty respectable. The iPhone now can finally compete against what Android smartphones have to offer. It can do fairly high resolution stills at 12 megapixels. The Nexus 5X can do 12.3 and 16 megapixels on the Samsung, and we have 4K video capabilities on all three of these smartphones. But now let's actually take the time to take a look at the video and photo capabilities of these three smartphones. We're basically shooting the same exact scenarios, and that way you can determine which actual camera looks best to your eyes. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is the battery life. You're taking a look at the capacity and specifications of the battery on each of these devices, and I actually took a couple of days to actually test out the battery extensively. And the first thing that I did was more of a controlled battery test, where I basically did a video playback test, and I determined how long each smartphone would last with a video on loop with the Wi-Fi off and maximum brightness settings. And here are the results over here, where the winner is the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. It got over 10 hours, 37 minutes, versus the iPhone got about 9 hours 31 minutes, and we got 9 hours 37 minutes on the Nexus. So the Nexus is kind of on par with the iPhone 6s when it comes to the video playback capabilities on the battery side. And to do a more critical analysis, I fired up the Geekbench battery performance test, and reviewing the results over here, you can see that again the Samsung came out on top of getting 7 hours 14 minutes versus just over 6 hours on the Nexus. And the iPhone 6s did very poorly here at only getting about 3 hours 27 minutes, which is definitely kind of upsetting. But really on that, guys, that's really it. Definitely let me know what you guys think of the new Nexus 5X. Are you in the market to getting it, and is it convincing compared to what these iPhone and Samsung phones are offering right now? I certainly think so. I think in terms of a value standpoint, definitely offers a lot for your money compared to some of those other phones out there, and it's running vanilla Android, which is always a nice plus. But definitely let me know what you guys think. Give us a thumbs up if you like this video. But really, other than that, that's really it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.